Good morning, or at least it's morning for me. I have no idea where on the planet you are calling from. Vic, I can guess where you're calling from, but I don't know anybody else. Can you chat me where on this planet you are calling in from? From Boston, from Oregon, from Utah, San Diego. So Blake is from Boston, and Kathy is from Utah, and Aparna is from Oregon, and Karen is from San Diego, and Christina is from North Carolina. And Vic is at the foot of Pikes Peak, which I know well. Welcome, everyone. And my apologies for all of you in Pacific time that this is a little early on Saturday. But here we all are. I'm glad you could make it. Awesome to see you. Really lovely to see you. Also from Boston, Kimberly. I'm not seeing your screen. So I'm glad you could make it. And part of the reason why I'm glad you could make it is no matter how much information I put on a website or on a piece of paper, I cannot convey what the integrated meditation program is on a piece of paper. It doesn't work. And part of the reason why it doesn't work is because it's layered. There's weaves and wefts that are layered in together. But when I'm in front of you and I can talk about it, I have more confidence that what I can express gives a little bit more of an accurate representation of what it is. So the integrated meditation program is a 6-month-long program. And the two weaves are the 5 qualities that support attachment repair, with the 3 pillars that is the mechanism through which we do it. Okay. So the background is that in our childhood, or when we had not enough protection and safety, attunement, comfort and soothing, delight in who we are fundamentally, and encouragement to express ourselves, then we came up with adaptive strategies to cope with that insufficiency. Okay. Those adaptive strategies for many people are the different kinds of attachment formations that we have other than being securely attached. When we look at how resilient those patterns are, they're quite remarkable. There's like an 80% chance that the attachment patterning that you are raised with, that you have when you're 2 years old, is the same one that you will die with. There's like a 70% chance that the attachment pattern your grandma has is the same one you have. There's like an 80% chance that the attachment pattern you have is the one that your children will have if you've got kids. Okay. Now, the reason why this is significant is because when you take meditators, I'm a meditator. I've been in meditating since I'm 17 years old. And you take these remarkable, liberating teachings, and then there's a question like, okay, how come we can have these wonderful, liberating teachings and these incredible, dedicated practices, and still the fundamental patterns connected to the attachment wounding don't shift? And the reason why, in my humble opinion, not having done a PhD research on it, is because the insight experience of understanding the fundamental nature of the mind is actually in a different stream of neurobiological processes as where our attachment formations take shape and the patterns that come from them. So it doesn't translate that we can have insight and the insight is automatically going to shift these patterns. and that's been my experience, is that there can be profound, liberating insight, and there can still be the feeling of insufficiency, or something's fundamentally wrong, or what's the word? I'm missing the word. The syndrome where we don't think we're good enough, imposter syndrome. So any of the different expressions of imposter syndrome can live concurrently with having had liberating insights. All right. So the reason why attachment repair is necessary, in my mind, for those of us who are dedicated meditators, but the meditation doesn't shift the pattern, is because it operates on a different level, a neurobiological processing level. So that when we come forward, let me backstep a little bit. If our attachment strategies are formed from the absence of those 5 qualities, protection and safety, attunement, comfort and soothing, delight and encouragement, then when we put them forward, when we front load them, when we optimize them, then we create a neuroplastic situation where our systems can shift based on the presence of those rather than on the absence of those. Okay. And then as our systems start to recognize those qualities as being present, then we have more choices. We don't only have the patterns that were formed as a result of the absence of them. We have another way of looking. So those 5 qualities are the 5 qualities that we focus on over the 6 months, and we do it through the 3 pillars. The first pillar is collaboration. So we set up collaboration by having clear guidelines about what is appropriate behavior and what we agree to ethically and how we relate to each other so that people can relax and feel safe in the space in terms of confidentiality and in terms of what happens when people speak and what kind of responses are welcome. And so the collaboration is both in the guidelines and it's also in the way that the program is set up for people to support each other in inquiry. So what's different about this program from other programs and from other attachment repair situations is that this is set up as a Sangha activity for meditators, okay? Most of the other situations, it's a one-on-one thing that you do with the teacher or the therapist or the coach. And this is combining doing it with the teacher, doing it in groups, and doing it with peers. And because as peers, you can have as much contact with each other as you want, there's no limit to how much you can bring forward the supportive practices as a way of helping you to begin to start seeing new shifts and different patterns emerge. Okay. So the first pillar is collaboration. The second is mentalization. And that is like a psychological word that is related to meditation. But meditation is looking, like, from my Theravadan perspective, it's looking at things through the lens of like what's happening in our body, what's happening in our emotions, what's happening in the mind, the thoughts. And then we look through the Four Noble Truths, or are there hindrances, or do we have the factors of awakening? But mentalization breaks it down or includes like 18 different ways that we can look at our thinking. And as we look at our thinking and understand it, we can see how we have come to certain conclusions and whether those conclusions are valid or maybe reactive. And we can see how other people have come to their conclusions, and we can have more understanding about what their needs are or what is underpinning why they're doing that. the more we understand why we are thinking the way we are thinking, the more it gives us more capacity and resilience for compassion, for patience, for understanding, and for relating. Then the third pillar is ideal support figures. David Elliott and Dan Brown initially called it ideal parent figures, but people have dogs and cats and baboons and snow monkeys and bears showing up in their ideal support figures. And so it's not just human, it's however it shows up. And so that's one of the things that I bring, which is understanding that the support can be a whole lot wider than just the nuclear family model of a mom and dad. So we tap into supports that are already here and accentuate them, and then invite them with our imagination to start showing up and helping leverage our ability to feel the 5 qualities and to help us feel soothed and comforted when we're activated. And then eventually to help us go back in time with memory, look at things that had a negative imprint and redo those memories with the support that we didn't have at that time to have a different outcome. Now, the way and the reason why this works is because our imagination and what happens in real time, our brain can hardly differentiate between those two. So when we have a direct, vivid experience that is imagined, it's as if it's real. And the more we have vivid experiences of safety and protection, of attunement, of comfort, of soothing, of delight, of encouragement to express ourselves and to explore, then we shift the patterns and we live from that as the truth rather than that as the absence. And the impact is trophic. So there's a biological term, which is a trophic change. And that means that the change impacts like virtually every possible part of one's experience. It changes our beliefs about ourselves. It changes our beliefs about the world. It changes our physiological set points of how much stress we're navigating, how much resilience we have, how quickly we recover, how likely we are to be impacted by stress events in the future. It impacts our relationships. It's trophic. It spreads into everything. So when I lived in the monastery and was watching what was happening in my own practice and was watching what was happening in my brothers and sisters, as well as in my teachers, I was like, I'm interested in finding something that actually is a response that helps, that is a bridge. And for me, I have always been somebody, well, not always. After 20 years of totally dedicated practice, I then began asking the question, if doing more of the same is not going to have a different result, then what else is needed? And so at that point, I came forward with whatever it takes. So rather than being a traditionalist where I felt like the only thing that I could do was the thing that the tradition offered to me, it was like, what else is needed in order for there to be the kind of liberation that I genuinely long for, which is not just the liberation of being able to understand the nature of the mind, but the liberation that allows that to come through my beliefs about myself, my physiological levels of rest or anxiety, and my experience in relationship with others. So that's a mouthful, but I can feel more confident speaking it than I can putting it on a website or on a piece of paper or in 20 different emails to you, you know? I can do it in time, but it's really hard for me to do this in tiny little bite-sized pieces because I'm trying to convey a mandala, a layered system that helps change us in so many different ways. So what I'd like to do now is just a very short guided meditation. And then afterwards, we can have time for questions. So what I'd like to do is invite you to find a way to sit or to lie or to rest in a way that is easeful and upright. And just take a moment and notice what you notice, what's present here, what posture you're in, how much you can feel your weight, how much of your body you can notice. Take a couple of breaths and just allow yourself to gather attention and turn it towards what's happening now. And on the next few out breaths, just invite a little deeper sense of relaxation and settling. It's an invitation, it's not a demand. It's an open door rather than a requirement. Just letting go of what's not needed right now. And now, from this place of a little bit more settled and collected, bring to mind the image of a place that feels very safe to you. It could be your backyard or your kitchen. It could be a place in the mountains or by the ocean or a river. It could be by a rock or surrounded by favorite animals or protectors. You don't need to force anything. It's not a requirement that anything in particular shows up, but just allow an invitation for a place that feels safe and protective and where you can feel safe there. And as much as is available to you, allow it to become clear and vivid. And as it becomes clear and vivid, or as clear as vivid as is available, just notice what you notice. What is there that you see? What do you hear? How does it feel against your skin? And what happens to your body there? So allowing each of the senses to become as vivid as is available for you. Really sensing what it's like to be there in a kind of visceral, alive way. And in this safe space, take some breaths. And as you breathe in, just allow yourself the nourishment of that ease, of safety, of protection. Fill up your whole body with it. Let your nervous system know. And as you breathe out, see what happens. If a little bit more release and opening and settling and relaxation is available. behind your eyes, in your chewing muscles, your neck. In your shoulders. In your diaphragm area where you're breathing, and in your lower belly. So just breathe in the ease and the well-being, and allowing that to spread, nourish, hold you. And now keeping that sense of safety internally. As you listen to the sound of the bell, and in your own time, open your eyes. So thank you for joining me in that. And so now is the time really for you, for comments, for questions, for sharing impact, what you heard, how this meditation. Yes, please, Aparna.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, just fine. Thank you.
That was such a beautiful meditation. I typically tend to have a little knot in my belly most of the times. And when I imagined myself in my safe space surrounded by people, my friends that I trust and feel safe with, the knot really released. Yeah, that was such a great example of what you're talking about before. I was wondering if you have anybody from the previous cohorts join in and also offer what they got from the courses. I think that was my question.
So we have somebody here who is from a previous cohort, and I don't want to put her on the hot seat without her willingness, but if she's willing, she's certainly welcome to speak up.
Thank you.
I can report enormous impact in my life, and just being able to sit with other people and do this together has had so much more impact than one-on-one and in my long-term meditation practice. So sharing the experience with others, seeing how totally individual it is, and yet it has the same kind of impact or long-term benefit. I'm absolutely convinced that this works. And the power of imagination, I don't know, it's there for us at all times, but it's safer. And much more powerful when shared. So that's and also Amma has been a very insightful guide. And I've found that has been helpful too. Availability for questions, for when something doesn't seem to be landing right, asking for it to be said a different way, finding a way that it lands for you. The many strands of this practice have been synergistic. They've worked together and been more powerful than any of them by themselves. That's, I can speak to that very strongly. I hope that answers your question. But if you have other questions, let me know.
Lisa, can you give people a context? How long have you been meditating?
Oh, I've been meditating since my 20s and I'm in my 80s.
Thank you. Yes, please. Karen.
In 2018, I went to Spirit Rock and had a few days with you, and I wanted to tell you it meant so much to me. It was wonderful. So it's good to see you again. For me, there's a challenge with touching back in that time, particularly up through 5 years old. I don't have many memories, and there's a lot of fear and of about touching back into that. And I wanted to ask you, I guess I've never been able to create that sense of safety to just go back there. And I'm not quite sure what I'm asking you, but.
So this kind of process is gentle, and it doesn't ask you to do things that don't feel right. And you're the one who gets to decide, not anybody else. And what we're doing is, before we're going back and figuring out what happened, we're wanting to have a stable base that we're working from. So it's really important that you have the ability to feel safe and protected and can bring forward these qualities. And when those are available to you, then you have the resources to use them in ways that is up to you, in terms of how you work with what happened in the past, or shift the patterns that you have now.
Okay.
So it's resourcing without there being an agenda about what that resourcing does.
Good. That sounds good.
Blake, yes, please.
I just wanted to say, I can only admire the courage it must have taken to leave after 20 years in a monastery. That must have been very difficult. I've been pretty dedicated to my Buddhist practice after a year, and it feels like I have two different lives almost. There's the Buddhist practice and then everything else. And it's those Buddhist states, or it's like all these insights and stuff can last right up until the environmental trigger. And then I'm right back to that patterning. I've looked into other like ideal parent work and some of John Kransky's field of care stuff, but it all feels so isolated. And so that Sangha aspect has been something I've been missing. And I'm very grateful to hear that it's part of your program.
Well, thank you for naming the challenge of leaving something that you're part of for a long time. That there's a yes to that with exclamation points. And because of the relational practices that I've done, I had confidence that there would be a way, even though I didn't know. You know, when you start something, you don't know how it would actually all unfold. And David Elliott and I have spoken many times, you know, there's no genius in the 3 pillars. There's nothing innovative in that. You know, collaboration, mentalization, and ideal support, they've been around in different forms for forever. but it's the packaging. And again, in this situation, it's the packaging. It's the understanding that you can do this as a Sangha activity with other meditators, you know. So I don't know. Actually, I'm quite confident that the genius of this program is actually the collaborative support between the peers. That's actually the like what makes this thing so incredibly transformative.
Yes, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Julia.
Hello. I think all of this is on the website and I've read it before, but it's just not at the front of my mind. Could you just say a little bit about like what the 6 months actually looks like, what the sort of rhythms of moving through the program are?
Good question. Thank you for bringing that up. So you can expect 4 meetings a month. There's a big group where we all meet together. There's a mentor group where a facilitator leads it. There's a peer group where you meet without a facilitator. And then you have buddy meetings. And then you will have one-on-one meetings with me or another teacher. So 4 or 5 meetings a month. They're different lengths. The big group is 3 hours. The mentor and the peer group are an hour and a half. The budding meetings are an hour. And the one-on-one sessions are 45 minutes. And I think that I need to put more one-on-one sessions in. I think that I haven't had enough one-on-one sessions. And so I think that this next cohort, there's going to be 3 or 4. I need to talk to my team about that. But I'm going to have more one-on-one sessions because I think that will help everybody land and get a little bit more grounded with this. Does that give you more clarity?
Yeah, and then I'm just curious who the facilitators are when we're not in the big group with you.
In the past, I have been the teacher and the facilitator. I've got a facilitator training right now. And so I've got people who are in the first cohort who are also have either MMTCP certification or were in my women's facilitator group. I'm training them to be facilitators. And so, yeah.
Thanks.
There were 2 more questions. Have the questions disappeared? Kimberly.
I had the same question as Julia about the format. So
Okay.
thank you for addressing that. I'll also study the information that you provided on the site. If after reviewing that, if other questions occur to me, would it be okay to drop in on Wednesday as well with any additional questions?
I've set this up for you. You're welcome to come as many as you want. If you want to come to all of them, that's great. In the last cohort, there was somebody who came to all of them because she wanted to meet all the other people who were interested. So please feel welcome. They're for you and you can come and keep asking questions. And Lisa, it's awesome that you showed up because you can speak from your perspective. And that gives a whole other layer of information that is different than if I say. So, any other questions? Christina.
You drop a link to the page on your website that has like the dates and the costs and stuff like that.
Do you want me to put that in chat?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let me just go find it.
Thanks.
I don't have it on the computer. Hang on a second. It's going in chat. And somebody else had their hand up. Was it Ingrid? Carol Jean.
Yeah, hi, nice to see you. I'm curious, the people who do take the course, what are some of the things they say reasons that they show up there that they're hoping to get. And also, are there any people, are you addressing, I've had traumatic experience in Sangha, in spiritual community, in retreat center situation. So that's been really hard to address anywhere without people get very defensive very quickly, as if you're that's like criticizing the country or something. So I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to say what happened. And yeah, is there room for that?
So the first question is that people come mostly because there's some resonance, that recognizing that they've been very dedicated in meditation, and there are certain patterns, whether it's anxiety or a sense of insufficiency or a sense of reactivity, that's not clearing from the meditation. So each person is going to have an individual reason, and they're different, but most of them are resonating with that. Okay. I also understand spiritual abuse. Like, I have the t-shirt and I've read the book. And so for me, I want to make safe space for that. So I'm not a trauma therapist, and spiritual abuse is particularly difficult to heal from because it is so utterly devastating in terms of cutting across your hope, your expectations, your understanding of harmlessness, and the teachings, and the hope that teachers are going to be safe people, or Sangha members are going to be safe people. And the reality is sometimes opposite. And what that means in terms of what it takes to heal. So I have personal experience with that journey. And I have like a deep understanding of how challenging it is to recover from. And I'm very sorry. And I'm also like, it's astonishing to me how widespread that is. You know? So, any more questions about that? Yes, Vic.
Here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation and also for introducing these concepts. I mean, I think these are wonderful, and certainly have appreciated the benefits of your practice and what you're doing, and just the importance of safety as a good starting point. And over the years, I think everyone has had significant traumas in the past, micro traumas, and things that we're not even aware of, the anulaya, the things that just are sort of pointing us in a direction that we're not necessarily, is not necessarily good, and that we're not really probably ever going to find out exactly what these sources are. And yet, if you've come to terms with many of them already, and found a good spot of safety and a good supportive group, and I guess the practice is kind of going in a good direction, and you can come to terms with these things, what benefits would the program have for someone who is reasonably good at managing these forms of dukkha that we have?
So, lovely question, Vic. I really appreciate it. First of all, I just want to lift up the fact that the presumption that meditation usually brings is that we already have safety.
Sure.
And so when that is not something that most people when that is not something that somebody actually has deep access to, then this program, first of all, provides a context for understanding that needs to be prioritized, and you need to be proactive in creating it. And there needs to be particular guidelines to support it. You can't just assume that it's there and then move from that assumption.
Sure.
In a situation like yourself, where it's good enough you know, you've done work on the traumas, you're feeling comfortable and confident enough, then I think what might happen is that you would be open to be surprised.
Mhm.
And the reason why I say that is because we cannot see what we don't see.
Sure. Mhm.
And so when we shift our fundamental baseline to have more safety and more of those 5 qualities, then what that illuminates is some capacity to see things that we weren't able to see before because we didn't have the capacity to see it.
Mhm.
So I don't have a crystal ball, and I am not good at predicting outcomes for people. Yet, what I see in my own experience is a surprise, even with my own level of how much resolution I have had and how much healing work I have had, when there's a new level of integrating safety, protection, and those 5 qualities, I have new capacity to see patterns and harm that I hadn't realized before.
Mhm. Thank you. Mhm.
Lisa, I would invite you to chime in also about that question.
I don't have any prepared answer. And I feel, Ame, that you addressed exactly that. This is providing somehow a lubricant or a inner resource that I did not know I was missing. And that as a result, I'm having interesting surprises, memories that arise, situations that I thought hadn't created an entanglement that I didn't know how to solve, but actually did, that emerged and is, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not organized to answer in a way, but I'm nodding my head here as I hear your response. This is a multifactorial provision of resources in lots of different areas. And depending on what you already have or what you are needing, the ones that you need next seem to fall into place. That's my experience has been. And especially with others, to be either in a buddy situation or in a peer group situation, to just experience how somebody else is experiencing it is so rich. It's like, I didn't know that it was possible to work this way as I'm seeing my peer work. And it's creating a sense of joy and laughter and aliveness. And as I encounter new experiences in my life now, I'm able to draw on my buddy's experience and understand another person better and understand the situation that might be making a conflict happen. Or, I mean,
Thank you, Lisa.
very human.
Yeah, I would add one more thing, Vic, which is that, I mean, certainly I think everybody, it's just an adding on to what Lisa just said, which is that everybody, I think, comes into the program so far motivated for personal aims. And yet what opens up is a collective way of relating to each other that's not only about one's own personal aims, but about creating a sangha where there's this kind of intelligence and understanding that is embedded in the culture, that is not only for your own benefit, but it's also for everybody else's benefit. And so there comes like a shift of like the awe of like what's happening for others as well as what's happening for me that one's part of. Kathy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing, what you've shared. And I'm so grateful that you, through the course of your life, were drawn to create this and bring this forward for us. Just really deep appreciation for your journey. I did a month long at Spirit Rock in March, and there was a lot of difficulty I experienced a lot of difficulty in that experience, which has brought me here. When I heard you speak afterwards, I was invited to a sangha where you were speaking, and it was very clear to me that the things you were speaking to were a direct answer to the things that I struggled with. At the end of that month long, they gave us an opportunity to create small groups and kind of peer group type experiences. And most people like put up there on the board things like if you were a teacher or a therapist or an attorney or lived in a particular area, then they would do small groups. And I had a lot of trepidation, but I did come forward and put on the board to have a small group for the day about people who experienced trauma in the retreat.
Mm.
And I was just stunned by because there's a very much of a sense of aloneness when you're experiencing that. I mean, I would look around the Sangha and think, am I the only one here who is who was just hanging on by my fingernails? Because everybody else appears so calm, and I mean, you're not talking, so you don't know, but I was surprised by how many people came forward and joined that group so that we could have a conversation about it at the end. So that helped me see that this is a more prevalent issue than I think is discussed inside of the community at large, the Buddhist meditation community at large. And it touched my heart in a very deep way. And I have always struggled with Sangha because and when you named it, when you said if you don't have safety and these different things, is like, I don't have any of that. So then it helped me help me understand better. Okay. And so I really see the value I'm intrigued. I've never experienced, I don't have a lived experience of being in a Sangha where everyone has this same sense of, is there something specifically just wrong with me that I can't get calm and safe inside with these beautiful insights? So I so appreciate you explaining that today about the layering and how you can have insights and this other stuff still running the show. So that I just wanted to share that, and thank you. And then also my question is, I imagine that for the preservation and the development of the container, there is I don't want to say a requirement, that feels so strong, but that we be at all of the events. And I know in my particular schedule, I work part-time in Africa, and I have to go there for like 3 weeks during this 6-month period. And would that be something that would preclude me from participating?
No, it wouldn't.
Okay, because I often don't we don't have electricity or phone connection, so
Yeah.
I may or may not be able to make the event, the meetings.
No, it wouldn't preclude you.
Okay.
I want to say one more thing, which is that attachment research has shown that when there's attachment wounding, it changes a few things. One is that it means that we are not actually tracking what's going on inside of ourselves. We're not tracking accurately what's happening in another person. But the other thing, and this is not something that meditation teachers talk about, or I've never heard a meditation teacher talk about, is that in the natural progression of insight, it's very natural, it's common, it's been written about and repeatedly. It's in the suttas, it's in Mahasi Sayadaw's stages of insight, that when you come close to stages of awakening, there's a natural fear that happens because the ego is doesn't have the normal things that prop it up. So it's beginning to recognize its illusory nature, and ego is not happy about that. So fear is a natural response, and it's common. It's a classical stage of the awakening process. When you conflate the insight process with attachment wounding, you've got something different, because the fear that's a natural part of the awakening experience can activate the trauma of abandonment, of attachment wounding. And when you have a trauma activation, it's not something that you can just sit with and watch it dissolve. You are out of your window of tolerance, and it's not possible to tolerate, which means that in order to survive, you back off from the meditation. Okay. What this means then is that people who have a genuine proclivity for meditation practice, they're at a level that they cannot go past because it's activating something more primitive that they don't have tools in meditation to deal with, nor do they have understanding of what's happening other than it feels terrible. This understands why, and it brings a remedy, a bridge, so that that actually can release. So in the first cohort, one of the practitioners would go on retreats because he was dedicated. He had a lot of faith. He knew that meditation was good for him, but he would white knuckle it. He would go and he would be in a state of anxiety from the moment he got there until the moment he left, because there was something about this whole process that was activating. And after doing this work, he goes on retreat and it's bliss, because he's not in a state of total anxiety, and he can experience the deepening of the practice without the activation of the trauma. So, Christina.
Now, would you recommend this course? I've already done ideal parent protocol work and probably earned secure attachment, but I still feel anxiety in everyday life. Would you recommend this course to
Yes.
someone?
And the reason why is because there's something that happens in the relational field of doing it with peers that is different than doing the IPF work one-on-one with a teacher or a therapist.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's somebody who has gotten the integrated attachment therapy training and teaches others, is a coach, and is in the cohort and is loving it because it's hugely insightful. Well, that was fun. I appreciate your interest. I really appreciate your showing up and your questions and your presence. Lovely. And the cohort is due to start in February if we've got enough people that sign up for it. So please keep coming back to these drop-in groups. even if you're confident that you want to sign up for the program, you're still welcome to come back, because we have these amazing conversations and everyone is different. And I enjoy them, and it seems like others do as well. So feel welcome to return. And when you feel like clear that, yes, this is a match, then please go ahead and fill out the application. The application has a bunch of questions in it. There's a couple of questionnaires that need to be graded. I will need to interview each person and ask you specific personal questions. And that's all about wanting to create a group where the people who are in it are a good match. Because it isn't only an individual choice of, does this work for me, but an assessment process of how are you in your own capacity to manage what's going on, so that do you have the capacity to show up and be present for another person while they're speaking. Good. Thank you so much. And bye for now.
Thank you, Alma.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.